What I'm about to say in this video is the fucking truth. Dereck Chisora is a journeyman. The man is a journeyman. The guy has 8 professional losses. Not 1, not 2, but 8. 8 professional losses. Where I come from, when we see a guy with 8 professional losses on his resume, we consider that guy a bum. Now I know that BoxRec.com rates Dereck Chisora as the 11th best heavyweight in the world, because as you can see, they rate him as the 11th best heavyweight in the world. But we have to keep in mind that BoxRec.com is the same website that rated Jeff Horn as the #1 welterweight in the world when Jeff Horn was the WBO champion at welterweight. You had all these other welterweight champions, but they put Jeff Horn as the #1 welterweight above everybody else. This is the same Jeff Horn that lost every single round against Terrence Crawford, a guy who had his first professional fight as a welterweight when he fought him. BoxRec is a great website. It shows you the records of professional boxers. But when it comes to rating fighters in their divisions, they tend to do a shit job, because at one point they also had Chris Eubank Jr. as the #1 super middleweight. I remember when they had Chris Eubank Jr. as the #1 super middleweight on their website, and Chris Eubank Jr. hadn't fought anybody. He hadn't fought anybody at 168, but apparently he was the best. This was before he fought George Groves. He was the #1 super middleweight. So again, when you see BoxRec rating Dereck Chisora as the 11th best heavyweight, don't pay no attention to that. That they assume this. Now, when it comes to Dereck Chisora, I get that he has this this fan base, because when I look at Dereck Chisora, I get the impression that he has a lot of believers, because he happens to be from the UK, and as we know, in the UK, boxing fans support their fighters a whole lot. And Dereck Chisora, to me, at least my impression from the outside looking in, I get the impression that many of his fans believe that he's like a really good fighter, like he is a legit top 10 heavyweight. I've never considered Dereck Chisora a top 10 heavyweight. I think he's more of the top 20, top 25. I know what you guys are going to tell me. You're going to say, well, Dereck Chisora has only lost to, quality opponents. Therefore, I'm a casual boxing fan because he has lost to quality heavyweights, right? Well, you're wrong, because he lost to Ajit Caballero. Ajit Caballero is a bum that nobody ever heard of. And since he beat Dereck Chisora, no one has heard of him since. He literally just beat Chisora and he disappeared. Like I said, no one knew who Ajit Caballero was. I expected Dereck Chisora to just blow him out of there, and he ended up getting outboxed by him and losing. Right? The point is, people, Dereck Chisora is a bona fide journeyman. He's not even a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper is a guy with maybe 3, 4 losses. This is a guy who has nearly 10 losses, and if he fights Dillian Whyte, he will have 9 losses. I don't understand why many UK boxing fans want to see Dereck Chisora in there with this man, Dillian Whyte, when you already saw this fight. Dillian Whyte versus Dereck Chisora is a recycled fight. It's a recycled in-house fight between Dillian Whyte and Dereck Chisora. That's all it is. It's a fight that I already saw. You guys already know the outcome of this fight. When has Dereck Chisora ever become a champion? Dereck Chisora doesn't have the ability to become a champion. That is just the truth. Dereck Chisora is one of those fighters that they're good in certain levels, but when they make it to the highest level of boxing, they always come up short. And that has been the story with Dereck Chisora's entire boxing career. He's always been a fighter that every time he fought the best guys in his division, he would always come up short. He would always lose. And it's because he didn't have the talent to compete with those fighters, because Dereck Chisora is a one-dimensional fighter. He's a one-dimensional fighter. He fights the exact same way every single fight that he's in. You never see Dereck Chisora on his back foot. You never see him try to outbox opponents. You never see him change his style. He simply comes forward, trying to dip and dodge the way Joe Frazier used to do back in the 70s. That you could tell that he's a fan of Joe Frazier. I believe he said it himself that he emulates his style off of Joe Frazier. He comes forward, he tries to do a Joe Frazier on his opponents, and he applies pressure. That's all he does. The bad part about that is his opponents have figured out how to beat that type of style, and that is to outbox him or to literally fight him toe to toe. When he fought when he fought Dillian Whyte, that fight was a phone booth. Dereck Chisora was coming forward against Dillian Whyte, and he was applying pressure. Dillian Whyte was also applying pressure. You know what happened in that fight? Dereck Chisora gassed out. I remember in the second half of that fight, Dereck Chisora was so tired that he was literally walking back towards the ropes in the corner. And he would just do that and lay against the ropes just because he was so exhausted. Right? And he did this literally in the second half of the fight. That's why he lost this fight to Dillian Whyte. Because in the first 5 rounds, he was putting a lot of pressure. But in the second half of the fight, he went to the corner and he was just out of breath. And Dillian Whyte then came on and put the pressure on Dereck Chisora. And he basically outworked Dereck Chisora. It was his youth, right? The exact same thing is going to happen if Dereck Chisora faces Dillian Whyte in this in-house shit fight. Dillian Whyte will be in a competitive fight with Dereck Chisora for 5 rounds. And then, bam. The second half of the fight, Dereck Chisora is going to gas himself out because Dereck Chisora doesn't like Dillian Whyte. And he believes that he's a big puncher. The problem is, Dereck Chisora is not a big puncher. So, whenever he fights Dillian Whyte, he goes after Dillian Whyte. And he basically tries to work in a really high pace with Dillian Whyte. He's on Dillian Whyte the entire first half of the fight. And he's fighting in a very fast pace. The problem with that tactic is he gasses himself out. And he doesn't have the youth and the endurance to do this for 12 rounds. So what's going to happen is he's going to go after Dillian Whyte as soon as the opening bell starts. He's going to attempt to apply pressure on him. Then he's going to gas himself out in the second half of the fight because he used all his energy in the first half of the fight trying to knock out Dillian Whyte when he didn't have the punching power to knock out Dillian Whyte. And Dillian Whyte has a chin to take Dereck Chisora's best punches. And then he's going to gas out. And the minute he gasses out, you're going to see him go on the back foot, go against the ropes the way he did in the first fight. Dillian Whyte then is going to be coming forward and applying the pressure on him. And he's going to end up winning again via decision just because he outworked Dereck Chisora. And then Dereck Chisora is going to have, once again, another loss in his record, and he's going to be 9-0. Historically, this fight doesn't look good for Dillian Whyte because historically, when you go back and look at Dillian Whyte and you see that he fought Dereck Chisora, the only thing you're going to see is that Dereck Chisora had 8 professional losses in his resume. That's where you think to yourself, 10 years from now, new boxing fans will be looking at Dillian Whyte's career resume, and they're going to look and they're going to see that he fought Dereck Chisora twice, and they're going to think to themselves, why did he fight Dereck Chisora again? Dereck Chisora had 9 losses. What's the point of that fight? He already beat Dereck Chisora, and he was fighting a guy with 9 losses. Again, historically, I don't think it's going to look great for Dillian Whyte's resume because, like I said, historically, it's just going to look bad because it's going to look like Dereck Chisora is a journeyman compared to Dillian Whyte. I feel that Dillian Whyte right now is above fighting someone in the level of Dereck Chisora. I'm just being honest with you guys. I feel like Dereck Chisora's time is up. I feel like it's been up since for many years now. I remember when he fought Tyson Fury, when he got schooled by Tyson Fury 4 years ago in the rematch. At that point, I didn't want to see Dereck Chisora anymore. I remember he looked horrible against Tyson Fury in that fight. And I remember even back then I was thinking to myself, I don't want to see Dereck Chisora fight again, because he looked horrible. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, look at the difference in class and quality compared to someone like Fury and Chisora. Fury is just so much better than Chisora. And at that point, he had 6 losses already. And I remember thinking at the time, he should just, quit boxing. Of course, he comes back and he beats guys like Tagum and he fights Dillian Whyte. But The point is, like, I just feel like he's a recycled heavyweight. Like, that's how I look at Dereck Chisora. Like, he's just a recycled heavyweight. He's a heavyweight who I see him all the time fighting in the heavyweight division, but I never see him win a massive fight. Like, I've never seen Dereck Chisora win a massive fight. I see him get these chances. I see him get these opportunities to fight these heavyweights, some of these, contenders, some of these heavyweights, and he always comes up short. I get it, he beat Takam, but he was losing against Takam. And like I said, Dereck Chisora is one of those guys, he could beat Takam, and then he could lose his next 3 fights. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he fought Dillian Whyte next, if after he loses to Dillian Whyte, he goes in a 3 fight loss. He loses his next 3 fights. Because that's been the story of Dereck Chisora's entire career. He's a guy who has always come up short, and he will never be a champion, especially at this stage in his career, because he doesn't change his style. That's his problem. He doesn't change his style. He just fights one way. He's not progressing in terms of changing his style. His style isn't getting better. It's staying the same. And heavyweights and fighters and trainers have seen his style so many times, and they know what to do against him. That's why you had a G. Caballero outboxing Dereck Chisora, because he saw him and said, oh, we can outbox him. Let's just outbox him. Let's play the counterpuncher. And they did that all night and outboxed him. Right? Correct Bullet did the same thing. I'm just going to outbox him. Fighters, trainers know how to beat Dereck Chisora. Alright? Dillian Whyte happens to fight in a phone booth with him because Dillian Whyte is a fighter. He likes to fight. And I just feel like at this point, I'm sick and tired of seeing Dereck Chisora fight in these big fights because, like I said, he's a recycled heavyweight at this point. I've seen him. So I've been watching Dereck Chisora for years, people. For years. I'm sick and tired of seeing this recycled heavyweight get these shots just to lose. That's what happens. He just loses. I feel like Dillian Whyte right now is a better than someone like Chisora. Dillian Whyte is not a journeyman. Dillian Whyte is a top 10 heavyweight. And he's just going to fight Chisora in a recycled fight, and he's going to beat him. And that's it. End of story. Okay, cool. He beat Dereck Chisora in a rematch. Dereck Chisora now has almost 10 losses. What is that going to prove? We already knew he was going to beat Dereck Chisora. No one's going to be picking Dereck Chisora to beat Dillian Whyte. I guarantee you, if this fight gets confirmed, Dillian Whyte versus Dereck Chisora, I guarantee you everyone's going to be picking Dillian Whyte to win. Because we already know their styles. We saw what happened in the first fight. Dillian Whyte has improved since then. You get what I'm saying? That's why I want to see him in there against Luis King Kong Ortiz, because that's a different fight. Luis Ortiz is not a recycled heavyweight. I haven't been seeing Luis Ortiz for a decade. I haven't seen him in several fights. To me, he's still like a fresh heavyweight in terms of like his appearances. I know he's up there in age, but in terms of like his appearances, I haven't really seen Luis Ortiz that much. So I still look at him as like a new heavyweight. When it comes to Dereck Chisora, I've been watching this guy for almost 10 years. I've seen this guy fight so many times. I've seen him come up short so many times. I'm just sick and tired of watching this recycled heavyweight constantly get these shots just to lose. He gets these big shots and he never is able to win. He's never, it's just the truth, he's never able to win against these legit top 10 heavyweights. He's not. He gets these opportunities and he always comes up short. And then he goes on to fight some bums. Like, I'm telling you right now, if he does fight Dillian Whyte next, he's going to lose. And when he loses to Dillian Whyte, and his next fight, he's going to fight a bum with like 10 losses. Because that's all Dereck Chisora ever does. He fights a legit heavyweight, he loses, then he goes back to fighting, bums. Dillian Whyte said it himself. Dereck Chisora is just a guy that fights bums. He loses against legit heavyweights, then he fights bums for peanuts. That's what Dillian Whyte said out of his own mouth. And that's why I just feel like this is just a recycled fight. I don't want to see this fight. I would rather see him fight Luis Ortiz. That's just how I'd rather see it. I get that Eddie Hearn is a greedy promoter and he wants to keep everything in-house and make as much money as he can with Dillian Whyte fighting only his in-house fighters. But as a boxing fan, I think him versus Luis Ortiz is just new. It's different. It's not Luis Ortiz is not a recycled journeyman the way Dereck Chisora is. Dereck Chisora is a recycled journeyman heavyweight. Dillian Whyte isn't. He has one loss. Luis Ortiz isn't. He has one loss. That's it. He's not recycled. He's not a guy with 10, 13 losses, and you just get sick of seeing this guy always compete against guys and then come up short. He's still a fresh face. Same thing with Dillian Whyte. He's not a recycled heavyweight. That's why I want to see both of these guys fight, because they're both, if you think about it, they're basically both fresher than someone like Dereck Chisora, who's just, like I said, I look at him as a recycled heavyweight. That's how I look at him. He's a recycled heavyweight who constantly comes up short and will never be a champion. Like I said, he's never going to be champion. It's just not going to happen. I don't see him ever beating one of these legit heavyweights, or at least any of these champions. So I just feel like it's a waste of time fight. Put him in there against a new face, Luis Ortiz. See what happens. I think it's an exciting fight. I know a lot of boxing fans want to see this fight. That's why I don't understand why there's some boxing fans that want to see him fight Dereck Chisora. Aren't you guys, you UK boxing fans, aren't you guys sick and tired of watching Dereck Chisora constantly fight? He's recycled, man. He's recycled. He's been doing this for so many. I'm just sick and tired of watching Dereck Chisora delbo like he's a recycled heavyweight. He's been there, like, it's annoying, man. Like, and he always gets these opportunities. There's in every division we have that one fighter that he never is good enough to become heavyweight. He's kind of like Chris Arreola. Chris Arreola is another guy. Who's a recycled heavyweight. We've seen Chris Arreola for so many years, and he's always come up short. He's never able to beat the legit heavyweights. He beats mediocre heavyweights, then he loses. Like when I look at Chris Arreola, he's like a recycled. I don't want to see him anymore. It's like, oh God, here we go again. This guy, he's gonna just come get his ass whipped, and that's it. That's how I feel with Dereck Chisora. He's just a recycled heavyweight. Like I said, I understand that the UK boxing fans are, they support this guy to the end, but aren't you guys sick and tired of watching this? Like, he's just recycled, man. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm out. Hit the subscribe button for raw boxing opinions, and yeah, guys, I'm out.